You can save every day by shopping at Whole Foods Market. Seriously, don't just go for the big sales. Walk the store and see the savings for yourself. In the seafood department, look for the yellow low price sign on Whole Foods Market Responsibly Farmed salmon. This fish is perfect for the grill. Buttery, fatty, yet lean, nice thick fillets. I'm getting hungry just thinking about it, and I know I can get it at a great price. There's so many ways to save at Whole Foods Market. Now you know.
Reese's peanut butter cups are the greatest, but let me play devil's advocate here. Let's see. So, no, that's a good thing. That's definitely not a problem. Reese's, you did it. You stumped this charming devil.
This isn't your average business podcast, and he's not your average host. This is the James Altucher Show.
In the movie 8 Mile, Eminem provides a great example of using cognitive biases to win the final rap battle against Papa Doc. Cognitive biases are powerful manipulative techniques that can be used to win any negotiation, close a sales deal, win an argument, even win a rap battle, even win the presidency. Cognitive biases are essentially shortcuts that the brain uses to make decisions. These shortcuts bypass normal, rational thinking. And so you have to be very careful they're not being used on you. Cognitive biases fight the myth that we actually have free will. A classic example is negativity bias. If a caveman heard a rustle in the leaves, they would assume the worst. It's a lion, and they would run without further investigating. This is why even now, newspapers often lead with negative news because they know it attracts our attention and we are likely to buy the newspaper. And even though humans are no longer running from lions, our brains can still be manipulated by the hundreds of cognitive biases that help us make quick decisions. Understanding these cognitive biases can allow people to manipulate, even control, the reactions of others, so they are worth learning to not only win arguments or close a sale or win a rap battle, but also protect ourselves from people using similar techniques. In this video, we will look at the final battle of the movie 8 Mile. The movie is about a white rapper named B-Rabbit, played by Eminem. After a series of failures in earlier battles in the movie, Eminem successfully uses powerful cognitive biases to totally vanquish his opponent. We will look at these biases to see how they can be used in almost any situation. Notice Eminem's first line.
Now everybody from the 313, put your motherfucking hands up and follow me.
The 313 is the area code for Detroit. And not just Detroit, it's for the blue-collar, black Detroit, where the entire audience and Eminem is from. So he wipes away the out-group bias that might be associated with his race, and he changes the conversation to who was in 313 and who was not in 313. He puts himself in the same group as the audience based on the area code. He says,
Put your motherfucking hands up and follow me.
Everyone starts putting their hands up without thinking. So their brain tells them that they are doing this for rational reasons. For instance, their brain tells them they are now following Eminem. Another example of herd behavior is when someone yells fire in a movie theater, and then suddenly, instead of rationally leaving, everyone irrationally clogs the exits because of this cognitive bias. Now that Eminem has established who the in-group is, it's the 313 group, we have to start putting his opponent, Papa Doc, in the out-group. So Eminem says,
Now while he stands tough, notice that this man did not have his hands up.
In other words, even though Papa Doc is black, like everyone in the audience, he is no longer in the group that Eminem has defined and commanded, the 313 group. He has completely changed the conversation from race to area code. He doesn't refer to Papa Doc by name. He says, quote unquote, this man. In other words, there's the 313 group, which we are all a part of in the audience, and now there is this ambiguous man who's attempting to invade us. Watch, for instance, any presidential campaign debate. A candidate will rarely refer to another candidate by name. Instead, he might say, all of my opponents might think X, but we here know that Y is better. When the brain starts to view a person with ambiguity, it gets confused and can't make choices involving the ambiguity, so the person without ambiguity wins. Because the brain wants to take shortcuts, it will look for information more from people with credentials or lineage than from people who come out of nowhere. So for instance, if one person was from Harvard and told you it was going to rain today, and another person told you it was going to be sunny today, you might, because of credential bias, be more inclined to believe the person from Harvard. Eminem does this subtly 2 lines later. He says,
1, 2, 3 into the 4.
This is a direct line from Snoop Doggy Dogg's first song with Dr. Dre, Ain't Nothing But a G Thing.
1, 2, 3 into the 4. Snoop Doggy Dogg and Dr. Dre is at the door.
Is perhaps one of the most well-known rap lines ever. Eminem uses credential bias again when he says,
Cause ain't no such thing.
and now the audience goes with him and shouts out
James is halfway crook.
a reference from Mobb Deep, which associates Eminem with another huge rap group, this time Mobb Deep. But then he points to his opponent, Papa Doc, and he makes a gesture like his head is being sliced off and says,
No pops, none.
meaning that Papa Doc has no lineage, no credibility, unlike Eminem and the audience. One of the strongest sales or negotiating techniques is to list the objections before the other side does. If they bring up the objections before you, then it looks like you were hiding something. And if you bring up the objections first, then it looks like you're being honest and upfront, and it removes their objections. So a great sales technique is to address all of the objections in advance. Listen to how Eminem does this in the next set of lines. He says, I know everything he's got to say against me. And then he just lists them one by one.
I am white. I am a fucking punk. I do live in a trailer with my mom. My boy Future is an Uncle Tom. I do got a dumb friend named Cheddar Bob who shoots himself in his leg with his own gun. I did get jumped by all 6 of you chumps.
And so on. He lists several more. And at the end of that list, there's no more criticism you can make of him. He's addressed everything and dismissed them. Eminem says,
You went to Cranbrook.
and then Eminem turns to his quote-unquote 313 group for emphasis as he explains what Cranbrook is.
That's a private school.
Bam! There's no way now that the audience can be on Papa Doc's side, but Eminem makes the outgroup even larger.
His real name's Clarence. And Clarence's parents have a real good marriage.
Bam and bam. 2 more things that separate Papa Doc out from the crowd. He's a nerdy guy who goes to a rich school and his parents are together. Now it's clear Papa Doc doesn't live in the 313, which is originally stated somewhat humorously, but is now proven without a doubt. For the final cognitive bias, scarcity.
Everybody, y'all if you doubt me. I don't want to win. I'm outie.
He makes himself scarce. After establishing total credibility with the audience, he says he doesn't want what they have to offer. He reduces the supply of himself by saying he's out of there. Reduce the supply of yourself while demand is going up, basic economics, value goes up. Does it seem silly to analyze a rap song for ideas, how to be better at sales and communicating? I don't know. You tell me. Take a quick break. If you like this episode, I'd really, really appreciate it. It would mean so much to me. Please share it with your friends and subscribe to the podcast. Email me at altucher@gmail.com and tell me why you subscribed. Thanks. I have to say, Airbnb has changed my life. I just love staying in Airbnbs. Like in about a month, I'm going to Cocoa Beach, which is right next to Cape Canaveral. I'm going to watch some rocket launches. I'm going to, of course, be staying in a very nice Airbnb on the beach. And it's just such a great experience. Like the whole world is available to us now because of Airbnb. But whenever I'm at an Airbnb, I always realize, the home that I left to come to this Airbnb, I could be making money on that right now by hosting and being an Airbnb myself. So, and I've known people, I had a friend who basically, made a living from turning his home into an Airbnb. So if you have a home, but you're not always at home, you do have an Airbnb there. And it can easily fit into your lifestyle, and it's a great way to earn some money. Your home might be worth more than you think. Find out how much at airbnb.com/host. Bill Murray is a huge hero of mine. It just seems like his life is spontaneous. He goes with the flow and great things happen to him. He once said that in the beginning of his career that he wasn't rich, but he'll just pretend like he is. So he won't care at all and he'll just see what happens. And he's been doing it ever since. So I just binge watched almost all of the Bill Murray movies, and he really does seem to play characters that are free and light and easygoing. The characters live the life I want to lead. I want to be like Bill Murray. I want to be unafraid. So I've gone through all of his quotes and interviews, and here are a few that have had the most impact on my life.
Let's hear your story.
It's hard to be an artist. It's hard to be anything. It's hard to be. What I learned from this is it's hard enough to live, and it's so easy to just slip into a boring routine every day. You wake up, you eat, you go to work, you go home, you watch TV, you go to sleep. But it's hard to give that extra push to make every day special, every interaction important, everything you do have impact. And with Bill Murray, he tries to do the push with every moment to make it special. You die in the improv set 5 times out of 9. So once you get over your fear of dying, nothing else really scares you. It would be great to never care what people think. But how do you achieve it? You have to actually learn to be bad. You have to actually die at what you do. You have to actually fail over and over again until you realize it's not the end of the world. As great evidence, Bill Murray certainly failed in some of his movies. As an example, The Razor's Edge, a movie he did right before Ghostbusters.
Where the hell have you been, soldier?
If you make others look good, you'll look good. Bill Murray says this is the secret to his success. He started out in improv. He didn't try to make himself stand out and look the best. He was on stage with John Belushi, Dan Aykroyd, and others who went on to enormous fame. He always just tried to make them look good, and he kept moving up the ladder of success as a result.
We came, we saw, we kicked its ass.
If I see someone who's out cold on their feet, I'm going to try to wake that person up. It's what I'd want someone to do for me. Wake me the hell up and come back to the planet. So he's not talking about literally waking something up. He's talking about really helping someone realize that life is special, life is interesting. Each moment can be turned into a work of art. One time, Bill Murray walked up to a man on the street who was smoking. Bill took the cigarette out of the man's mouth, took a puff, then gave it back to the man and said, "Nobody's going to believe you when you tell him this," and then walks away. So Bill Murray views all life as an opportunity to squeeze a bit more juice out of it by improvising on that moment. And why not? The more relaxed you are, the better you are at everything. The better you are with your loved ones, the better you are with your enemies, the better you are at your job, the better you are with yourself. This is the best advice ever. Whenever I'm nervous, I never perform as well. When I go to a social event, I'm nervous. When I give a talk, I'm nervous. Or on a date, or in a meeting, or doing stand-up comedy. Now that I've binge-watched Bill Murray's movies, I'm going to try to be more like him.
Make it Suntory time.
I live a little bit on the seat of my pants. I try to be alert and available for life to happen to me. If you're available, life gets huge. You're really living it.
I'd like to be more consistently here, I'd like to really get on I'd like to just, and I know it's not probably ever maybe possible, but because it's so improbable and so impossible, I'd just like to really see how long I could last as being really here, really in it, really alive.
This is about observation. Don't look at the ground when you walk. Look for those special moments. Look for the music in life. Really be present so that exciting things can happen.
That'd be my only chance.
This is not a dress rehearsal. This is your life. He's always about how you break the daily, normal routine of life that could end up being boring, and then the next thing you know, you're dead. How long are you going to wait before the real life begins? It's hard to win an argument with a smart person, but it's damn near impossible to win an argument with a stupid person. Friends talk, lovers kiss, idiots argue, but nobody wins in an argument. Bill Murray is known for cutting out immediately anyone toxic in his life.
Total consciousness.
It's really powerful to say no. It's really the most powerful thing you can say. We live in this FOMO world, fear of missing out. But Bill Murray has turned down starring roles for movies like Batman, Forrest Gump, Splash, Awakenings. Does he care? If you stick with the things you love, be with the people you love, and say no to the rest, everything takes care of itself.
Say hello, where you coming from?
All the quotes above are from Bill Murray that I've taken from various interviews that he's given. But this next one is a line he says, "I've killed myself so many times, I don't even exist anymore."
I'm a god.
In that movie, he lives the same day for 30,000 days in a row. But that's sort of a metaphor for how we all live our lives until we realize too late what's happened. We always think, maybe one day I'll be good at life, fall in love, save the world. But in the meantime, I just want to be good at being Bill Murray. I have to say, Airbnb has changed my life. I just love staying in Airbnbs. Like in about a month, I'm going to Cocoa Beach, which is right next to Cape Canaveral. I'm going to watch some rocket launches. I'm going to, of course, be staying in a very nice Airbnb on the beach. And it's just such a great experience. Like the whole world is available to us now because of Airbnb. But whenever I'm at an Airbnb, I always realize, the home that I left to come to this Airbnb, I could be making money on that right now by hosting and being an Airbnb myself. So, and I've known people, I had a friend who basically, made a living from turning his home into an Airbnb. So if you have a home, but you're not always at home, you do have an Airbnb there. And it can easily fit into your lifestyle, and it's a great way to earn some money. Your home might be worth more than you think. Find out how much at airbnb.com/host.
Now here for all of the youngsters of the country and Canada are...
I have learned 6 important life lessons from Mick Jagger that I use all of the time, every day, in every area of my life. It started out because I was really curious, how did this band, the Rolling Stones, survive for 56 years? I mean, they're even on tour right now, and Mick Jagger has said they might go on tour again and again and again. He's 75 years old. The Rolling Stone has the same frontman, Mick Jagger, same guy on guitar, Keith Richards, same guy on the drums, Charlie Watts. They just keep going. How do the Stones keep going? What makes them different? What makes them stand out? So many times you hear a young band and they just sound like every other band. Nothing that makes you want to say, hey, 56 years from now, I'm still going to be listening to them. They all met and bonded because they were obsessed with the history of music, specifically the blues. In fact, all of their original songs were blues cover songs. Keith Richards and Mick Jagger, childhood friends who lost touch, they actually ran into each other at a bus stop, and Jagger was carrying a Chuck Berry record. Richards recognized a kindred spirit, and they were inseparable after that. They were obsessed with learning every aspect of the history of the blues. Always learn the full history of whatever your interest is. Someone once asked me, what is better, to be good at a lot of things or great at one thing? The answer is perfectly exemplified by the Rolling Stones. They were good at every style of music, but then they became the greatest at the intersection of all of those styles. While the Beatles combined pop, Elvis, early rock, the Rolling Stones covered those forms plus blues and R&B. Things like this remind me of Bobby Fischer and chess, the greatest chess player who ever lived. But when he was a kid, he was considered a talented young chess player, but not the best ever. So he totally disappeared. He was around the age of 18. He did a comprehensive study of all of the games played in the 1800s. When he returned to play, he would play these old-fashioned openings from the 1850s, but he'd throw in his own subtle improvements that he had developed on his own. Within a year or so, he was easily U.S. champion and on his way to being the world champion. By combining passions, it's not as hard to be the greatest in the world at the intersections of all of those passions. People just simply did not like Mick Jagger's voice at first, and reviewers couldn't stand Jagger's voice. One reviewer said, "Very ordinary. I can't hear a word Jagger's saying." Another reviewer said, "Fuzzy and undisciplined. Complete chaos." It was also no secret that Jagger couldn't play any instruments at that time, so they simply weren't the best band out there. But they kept playing, and they also had the extra quality of Jagger's charisma. My theory always in any career start, career change, or developing a passion is that it takes 1 to 3 years to do the studying required, and about 2 years before you're making any money at this new career, 3 to 4 years before you're making a living from it, and 5 to 6 years before you are truly killing it. But it does require persistence each day, no matter what you're interested in, and the Rolling Stones perfectly demonstrated that. I'm always amazed at how groups of artists, businessmen, creators of any sort grow up together as a scene in their respective businesses. In writing, look at Jack Kerouac, Allen Ginsberg, and William S. Burroughs. In computers, for instance, look at Steve Jobs and Bill Gates. In the art world, look at Jasper Johns, John Cage, Robert Rauschenberg, who were all living on basically the same block in downtown New York exploring the art scene of the 50s. And it was no different for the Rolling Stones. One time, Jagger and Richards decided they needed to start writing their own music. They had no idea where to start. So Andrew Oldham was wandering around outside and ran into Paul McCartney and John Lennon and explained the problem. Lennon and McCartney went up to the apartment Jagger and Richards shared, and basically they riffed out "I Want to Be Your Man" to help the Stones put together the release that was their first major hit. The Rolling Stones said yes to everything. They would perform 200 places a year for almost no money in the beginning of their careers, even if it meant playing to crowds of just 4 or 5 people. This reminds me of when the Beatles were playing for almost 20 hours a day, 7 days a week at strip clubs in Hamburg, West Germany from 1960 to 1962. It was the nonstop playing that gave them the experience and mastery. But the key to a good yes is to make sure you extract as much as you can from everything you're saying yes to. Sergey Brin, for instance, one of the co-founders of Google, used to interview every single potential Google employee. He explained later that he knew within seconds whether he would hire someone or not, and would then spend the rest of the meeting trying to learn at least one new thing from the interviewee so the meeting wouldn't be a total waste of time. People all the time ask me how someone can make money from writing a blog or doing a podcast or writing a book. There really is no way. Most authors will tell you the fastest way to go broke is to spend years writing a book, but you use the content you create as a launching pad. The Rolling Stones are no different. They don't even own most of their most successful music. They mistakenly signed away all the rights to their music without even realizing it. The songs you know, like Paint It Black, Sympathy for the Devil, and on, had their rights signed away to their manager, Alan Klein, so they don't make any money off of those. So how do they make any money? Tours. They made over $600 million on their last tour. They form a company at the beginning of each tour, collect all the revenues of that tour, which includes sponsorships, tickets, clothing, record sales, etc., and then they dividend out the proceeds at the end of the tour, all taking home a nice paycheck. Jagger, who went to the London School of Economics, is very analytical, even inquiring with managers about which currency would be stronger, the pound or the dollar over time. All this is to say, you can create your content, but think of all the ways to slice it off to monetize that content. The Rolling Stones is not my favorite band. I've never bought an album. I've never seen them on tour, but I'm fascinated by their longevity, the birth of their creativity, the glue that stuck them together and propelled them from despair to success, and ultimately the magic of creativity that infects anyone who reaches the status they've reached. I hope one day, in my own way, to achieve a tiny sliver of that. I have to say, Airbnb has changed my life. I just love staying in Airbnbs. Like in about a month, I'm going to Cocoa Beach, which is right next to Cape Canaveral. I'm going to watch some rocket launches. I'm going to, of course, be staying in a very nice Airbnb on the beach. And it's just such a great experience. Like the whole world is available to us now because of Airbnb. But whenever I'm at an Airbnb, I always realize, the home that I left to come to this Airbnb, I could be making money on that right now by hosting and being an Airbnb myself. So, and I've known people, I had a friend who basically, made a living from turning his home into an Airbnb. So if you have a home, but you're not always at home, you do have an Airbnb there. And it can easily fit into your lifestyle, and it's a great way to earn some money. Your home might be worth more than you think. Find out how much at airbnb.com/host. Everyone is going crazy. Stan Lee, the godfather of the modern superhero, has died. So everyone's saying, Stan Lee changed my life because of Spider-Man, because of Daredevil, Doctor Strange, the Avengers, Black Panther. Sure, these are great stories, but that is not the reason to admire Stan Lee. This is the reason. He was married for 70 years. His wife died in 2017, and even Stan Lee wasn't immortal. Shortly after his wife died, he died a year later. I could picture them in bed almost, talking each other to sleep. It's been a long 70 years, honey, maybe he would say. And nothing, not the Hulk or Doctor Strange or Daredevil or the Avengers, could stop him from kissing her goodnight for the 25,000th night in a row as he turned out the lights. I love Stan Lee because he was a good guy and he loved what he did. And he wanted to share his love of story with us. And that's the secret of his success. Stan Lee, born Stanley Lieber, wanted to write the great American novel when he was a kid. He took a job at a company called Timely Comics. Comics were not in fashion then. The superheroes of the 1930s were no longer popular. It was mostly just westerns and romances. And he took a job. He was willing to do anything. He would fill the ink in the empty inkwells of the people who were really telling the stories of Timely Comics. Like many Jewish people at that time, Stanley Lieber changed his name to Stan Lee. Almost reminds me of how Clark Kent was originally called Kal-El when he was on Krypton. And El, of course, is the Hebrew word for God, a fact clearly known by Siegel and Schuster, who wrote the Superman comics. Stan Lee chose himself. He found a passion, storytelling, and he did it for free until he built up his network and his knowledge and put in his 10,000 hours of storytelling. And then he was finally given a chance. Come up with a new superhero team, the boss of Timely Comics told him. At this point, superheroes were just beginning to come back. The Justice League of America with competitor DC Comics had just launched. But Timely Comics was still doing Western comics, romance comics, and so on. But those were sliding down. Stan Lee took up the challenge. He had seen the troubles of growing up in slums. He had grown up the nerdy kid, the kid who struggled, the kid who was bullied. He saw the travesty and tragedy of war when he served in World War II. He didn't want to write a superhero that was perfect, like Superman or the Flash. He wanted real people with real problems, with real fears, with real insecurities, with real secrets, but only people who would now use their secrets to save the world and battle their emotional dysfunctions. 30 years before mythologist Joseph Campbell popularized it, Stan Lee understood the arc of the hero, which is the secret of all of the stories he wrote and the secret of how to create the kind of success Stan Lee had. Joseph Campbell noticed that in every major story that survived thousands of years of time, culture, history, in every major religion, in every major pantheon of gods and heroes, the same story structure took place over and over and over. Stan Lee knew this even before Joseph Campbell. And using this formula that had worked for 5,000 years of storytelling, Stan Lee created the heroes that are today's modern day pantheon of gods, as evidenced 50 years later by billions of dollars of movie franchises. Doesn't matter if you're young, you're old, you're ancient, you're a man, you're a woman, everybody is paying for tickets for these movies, all based on stories Stan Lee wrote using the arc of the hero in the 1960s. So let's examine the secret of Stan Lee's success in the context of how he wrote Spider-Man and how he used the arc of the hero, which is also sometimes called the hero's journey. First, there's the ordinary world. Our hero is not yet a hero. Maybe he's a nerdy high school kid. Call to action, where our future hero is still ordinary, but there's the call, come be a hero. Refusal of the call. At first, our ordinary guy doesn't want to be a hero or he has excuses. Meeting the mentor. Our hero, our future hero, meets the person who's going to spur him on to his adventure. Crossing the threshold. Now, finally, our ordinary guy is forced into the world of being a hero. Tests, allies, and enemies. He starts to meet the allies that will help him, the enemies that will attack him, and he has bigger and bigger tests along the way. Approach to the inmost cave, where in order to defeat the ultimate problems, he has to first conquer the fears, insecurities, and mistakes inside of himself. And then finally, the hero reaches his biggest test, his biggest challenge. He conquers it, and he returns to the world a changed person, ready to battle and to take on all future challenges. So that's the arc of the hero. Now let's look at it specifically in the context of Spider-Man. I'll present Spider-Man in the context of the arc of the hero. Peter Parker was a nerdy high school student that was bullied constantly, just like me, maybe just like you, just like 100 million other kids. Again, he was an ordinary high school student, but he had flaws. Then he was bitten by a radioactive spider. The radioactive spider gave him extraordinary powers. But first, Peter Parker didn't know how to use these powers. Instead of trying to save the world or help people, he wanted to make money. He fought fights in the circus, and that was his focus instead of being a hero. There was one point during this period, Spider-Man could have stopped a mugger, but again, he didn't want to use his powers to fight evil. But then something tragic happened. The mugger killed Spider-Man's mentor, his beloved Uncle Ben. And in his dying words, Uncle Ben whispered, "With great power comes great responsibilities." We all heard those words. Peter Parker heard those words. Spider-Man heard those words. And that was when he decided, okay, now I'm going to become a hero. He decided he's going to make his mentor, however brief, Uncle Ben, proud. Peter Parker, Spider-Man, enhanced his webbing, enhanced his suit, started fighting crime. And soon the criminals were not just simple muggers, but villains with vicious superpowers. Villains like Dr. Octopus, Mysterio, Electro, Shocker, the Vulture. Only Spider-Man could stop these villains. As he fought increasingly more difficult villains over the years, he built up his allies. Sometimes he worked with the Fantastic Four. For a while, he joined the Defenders. He even occasionally would work with the Avengers. And soon, the enemies went from villains destroying the city to villains potentially destroying the universe. Then, Spider-Man, Peter Parker, had his darkest moment. His arch villain, the Green Goblin, threw to her death the love of Peter Parker's life, Gwen Stacy. And Peter was just devastated. What was going to happen to him now? He was either going to be destroyed by his despair, or he was going to rise up and become the hero that would eventually save the world time and time again. Eventually, he conquered the Green Goblin, just as the Green Goblin was trying to now kill Mary Jane Watson. So learning from his mistakes and learning from his 10,000 hours of mastery as he learned how to better and better use his superpowers, he started working with the other superheroes, and he became the fully authentic Spider-Man we know and love today. So this was the hero's journey, the arc of the hero of Spider-Man. That was the story Stan Lee told, and he told it over and over again. He told it with Daredevil. He told it with Doctor Strange. He told it with the Hulk. These were the arcs of the heroes. These were the arcs that we want to go on with these heroes. We want to be heroes, and that's what Stan Lee was appealing to. He wasn't writing a great story. He was writing about you and me and what we wanted in our lives. And that's the final secret to Stan Lee's success. The question I ask myself is my life the arc of the hero? Is your life the arc of the hero? We can all learn from these stories to become the heroes in our own lives. I hope you enjoyed that. I plan on doing a lot more of these style of podcasts. If you like this, please subscribe.
Reese's peanut butter cups are the greatest, but let me play devil's advocate here. Let's see. So, no, that's a good thing. That's definitely not a problem. Reese's, you did it. You stumped this charming devil.
Look around. You can find cars like these on AutoTrader, like that car riding your tail. Or if you're tailgating right now, all those cars doubling as kitchens and living rooms are on AutoTrader too. Are you working out and listening to this ad at the same time? Well, multitasking pro, cars like the ones in the gym parking lot are for sale on AutoTrader. New cars, used cars, electric cars, maybe even flying cars. Okay, no flying cars, but as soon as they get invented, they'll be on AutoTrader. Just you wait. AutoTrader.